My name is Vesna Karapetrova, and we're here today at Canadian Macedonian Place on the 4th of February 2014 to interview Mr. Frank Evans. Welcome, Mr. Evans, and thank you for doing this interview with us. Can you tell us where and when you were born?
I was born in Toronto, in a house, and my date is January the 6th, 1928, in Toronto, East End.
Where were your brothers or sisters born, if you have?
All in Toronto.
Can you tell us their names?
Lorraine, and my other sister's Helen, and my brother John Kuzo.
And were they born
All in Toronto.
around the same time, or?
Well, they're all different ages.
Yes.
Lorraine is 84. You know my age. And my sister Helen is 89. And my brother John died a year and a half ago at 89. He passed away.
Where were your parents born, Frank?
My mother was born in London, England, in a section called Chelsea, in London, England. And my father was born in Gabresh.
Gabresh. And what was your father's name?
Well, he called Kissos, this is a Greek name, when he came over, Kissos, then he went to Kiprov, or Kizov, and then he went to Evans when he started his band.
When was that?
He started in 1926.
He started his band
His
in
band
Toronto.
in 26 in Toronto. Yeah.
Now, we have a picture here of a village in Macedonia. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's Gabresh.
Yeah, and that's where your
And
father...
that's where I was born, yeah.
That's where he was born. And when did your father come to Canada?
It'd be 1915.
1950. So your father
15.
lived in Gabresh?
In Gabresh, right.
Until he was...
15, and he came over here, and he was 15 years old.
Yeah, and in Gabresh, when your father lived there...
He lived in a farm there.
He lived in a farm, and what language did he speak?
He spoke Greek, but a little bit, and then Macedonian, of course.
So he spoke Macedonian because...
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
That's what he spoke with his
Oh,
parents?
absolutely. Macedonian all the way.
And where is Gabresh located?
It's not too far from Florida, and in that area. Ledin, near there, yeah.
Near there, yes.
A lot of villages there.
Right, so it's the Macedonia, the Aegean part,
oh, yeah,
which
right.
is
That's
now
the Aegean part.
under Greece, right?
That's right.
And since your father was born in Macedonia, the old country,
right?
Did he share any information about he was there until he was 15?
15, 11.
Do you remember him sharing any stories about his village?
Not too much. He didn't talk that much, but I found most of my information from my cousin Louis, her first cousin, and his nephew.
And Louis was also born there?
Yes, and he came here in 1939.
So he came after your father?
So he came after, oh yeah.
And anything that Louis has told you about?
Oh, he's told me
Gabresh?
everything about Gabresh, living on the farm and taking water from the river and fishing and peasant living.
Right, peasant living, and they all spoke Macedonian?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he spoke Greek too.
Yeah, and why did he come here in Canada?
His father was here already, and he came with his mother.
Right, and how about your father? We have some pictures here also of your father when he came to Canada.
He came with some friends.
Yes?
Yeah.
And did somebody sponsor him to come?
Yes, his uncle was a travel agent.
Yes.
And he helped them set it up.
And your father came by himself?
No, he came with some other men.
Right.
I don't know the names, but he came with some men, 2 other men, I think, yeah.
And what did he do when he first came here, in terms of him sharing with you? What kind of stories did he tell you?
Well, he just told me basically where he worked. He worked at the General Steelwares on River Street in Dundas, was it? It was an old plant there. A lot of Macedonian people worked there. General Steelworkers.
And here we have some pictures of your father. Can you tell us about the other people in the picture?
The one on the left is his nephew, Chris Evans. And the one on the right is Danny Petrov, but he went by Peters.
And do you remember, Frank, your father telling you why he came here? He left his village with some other...
His uncle was here, my cousin Louis' father.
Right.
He was here, Numa,
yes.
Norman.
Right, so the reason he came...
He had a brother here, and that gave him at least a start here. He was here already.
So he was hoping for a better life, is that?
I think so, yeah. He wasn't married or anything, and he just came over here.
Right.
And of course, I don't want to say it, but he didn't like the Greeks either.
He didn't like
the Greeks? Can I say that?
Yes, of course.
Even though he spoke it, and he did business with them.
Right, but did he tell you why were some of the reasons that he didn't?
Well, he didn't like them taking over, 1912, 1913.
Because at that time...
That's right.
What happened in the village when the Greeks took over?
Well, I don't know the whole story, but I know there are a lot of killings going on there after the war, in 1912, 1913. Yeah.
And your father had
He decided to go away,
To go away because it was safer here.
Yeah. And he wanted to look better life, and that was it.
Now here we have another picture of your father, and he has a musical instrument.
That's
Can you tell us how?
Well, it's an alto saxophone, and he took lessons from an Italian teacher. As a matter of fact, you've heard of the Four Lads, the singers, the Four Lads? One of them was called Frank Bushiri. His father taught my saxophone lessons.
So your father had to work in the factory when he first
worked in the
came
factory
from
and started to
Macedonia?
practice in the factory, right? He was a torcher with the torch,
And how long did he work in the factory before he developed his love for music?
He must have worked there a long time because he started a band in 26, but he's probably started playing in 23 or 22 to practice, to get ready. And then he worked with another band for a short period of time, and then he decided to start his own band in 1926.
1926. Do you know how his love for music developed? From someone coming from Gabresh and then working in the steel factory?
He was the only Toronto musician that was in the Union that was Macedonian.
He was the only one who was Macedonian.
Right. There was another fellow that did vocal at U of T, Datsov. You've heard of Datsov? He's a fine... You've heard of Datsov? He knew him. He was a musician too, but he's more of a vocal teacher.
So your father had formal training in music?
Well, just that teacher that I mentioned that taught him saxophone. That's all he had, yeah.
So was that like private lessons? Or
private lessons, yeah, an Italian man.
So just from going to these private lessons, he must have been very talented.
And he played clarinet too.
So he played trumpet?
No, alto sax.
Alto sax.
And the clarinet, I will heard in the Macedonian music from the clarinet.
Yes.
You know that they all have clarinet Macedonian music.
Right. And
go ahead.
In terms of your recollection of your father's career, so how did it start?
Well, he started with this band. I didn't have a picture of it here, but he started with some band for 4 or 5 months, and then he started his own band and did Macedonian weddings.
And did Macedonian weddings.
That's right.
So this was in the. This is another picture of.
Well, this is in the 30s, yeah.
That's in the 30s.
Yeah, but that's a dance band. He did Macedonia, but not much, But he did this, but that's why he changed the name to Evans, you see.
Yes, tell us about that.
Well, I mean, all I know is from my relatives and Louis, my cousin, and just saying that you couldn't get a name with a funny name, Kizos or Kizov or, and they changed your name to Evan.
So it had to be an
Evan is like
name.
John, you see.
Yes.
Evan is like John, so he made it John, and then he made it John Evans.
So that his band would be...
His band was Evans, yeah, and then he got work.
and so that he got work when
Right.
it was with
At first he
the
did
Evans.
Macedonian weddings, and then after that he got into regular dance band music. You know,
And
like
this is
that,
a
like
picture
that.
of-
This
yes?
is the dance band.
Dance band. And where would he play with that
Oh,
band?
he played at Columbus Hall, and he played, well, of course, later on, he played at the Sea Breeze and all other places, Port Dalhousie, Musselman's Lake. You've heard of Musselman's Lake? He played there, and that one there is, that's the Sunnyside. Sunnyside. That's in the mid 40s.
Yes, can you tell us about Sunnyside?
Well, Sunnyside, he started in 1942, and the band, his band and my band, played for 14 years consecutive.
You both had a band.
Well, when he died, my brother and I took the band over, kept his name for a few years,
Yes.
and then I decided I was doing most of the work, so I got off the job, so I changed it to my name in 1956.
It became
Frank Evans and his orchestra.
Frank Evans and his orchestra.
Same Evans, same band.
And now we have a pamphlet
Yeah.
of 60 years.
That's
Can you
60
tell us
years of
about
band, that's the band combined.
your father's and
And yeah,
yours
the pictures
with
are
your
in
brother?
there, yeah. Mhm.
And can you tell us then, all together with your father, and you first worked with your father in
Oh, yes,
his band?
a few years, yeah.
And when was that?
Started in 1945. I started with the band.
But your father had the band
Oh, he had
from
the
the
band from 26.
from 1926.
Right.
Okay, and then you joined?
I joined, my brother was already in the band. My brother John was drummer in
Yes.
the band. Then I came, I was younger.
And then you continued with the band.
I continued with the band, then he died, and we took it over, then I took it over.
Now, you also had another career. Can you tell us
Right.
about that? And we've got an interesting picture here of you as well.
Well, in 1967, I started teaching. I went back to university and got enough credits to get my teaching certificate, Ontario Teaching Certificate. And I started in the fall of 67, and I taught up until 1993. So I taught night school after 28 years at the Toronto Board of Education.
Okay.
And I did all right there, and still had the band.
And that's what I was going to ask you. You still had the band.
Oh, I had the band, I did all right.
Okay, great. Now, so the band was, you had a 60-year anniversary?
Well,
That was the
total
picture
band,
you saw,
the total
the
Evans.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that was in,
I don't know, is it the date there, that picture of the blue folder? Yeah, I don't know if it's dated there or not. Yeah, that'd be
1986.
86, yeah, about there, yeah. Yeah, my
Yes.
dad started in 56.
In 56.
That's right.
And that was
Not 56,
20
26, yeah.
26 to 86.
Right, that's
Yes,
right, that's 60 years, both bands.
That's both bands.
Right.
And then you're continuing with the band still at the
No,
moment?
I haven't,
or
no,
you haven't
I dropped that after that.
after the 60 years?
Yeah, no, not after that. I finished in 1993 or 94. It's about 20 years I've been off.
And
No, I don't know.
so what was most memorable for you in terms of your father and his band career?
Well, without him, he taught me, he told me to take piano lessons
Yes.
to understand music. I took 2 years of that. Then I went on to the trumpet.
Right.
And about 4 years after that, I started with the band. He thought I was good enough to get in the band.
And you were, all the time that your father had been working on his band, as
Yeah,
a child,
yeah.
you watched him?
From 45, that's right. And I used to, when he took an intermission to take a break, I would front the band for a few numbers while he was on an intermission.
And yes, you mentioned that your father played, and you also at a lot of Macedonian events.
We did a lot of them. Yeah.
What were some of the events that you
Well,
remember
one of the
that were
biggest ones,
regular or
and I've
biggest?
got a big thing I could have brought along if I find it, But it's he did a Macedonian relief fund at the Royal York Hotel with a big picture of him. That was one of the biggest events.
Macedonian
Relief Fund.
And when would this have been?
Well, it would be in the right at near the end of the war.
Which would be
45.
in around 1945.
Around 45,
the
yeah.
Macedonian community here
Right,
was
oh yes,
collecting and
Macedonia,
fundraising.
absolute big job at the Royal York.
Right, and where was this relief going to?
To the Macedonian people
In Macedonia.
Macedonia, and the people that
This would have been during
people
the
that
war,
got killed
after
in
the war?
and everything. Yeah. But we did a lot of dances for the Macedonian.
Yes,
nations,
tell
you know.
us, were there any, what kind of dances did you?
I played dances. I played in London, Ontario for Macedonians in London, and I did one in Hamilton for the Macedonians over there. Different associations.
So were there any special dances for
No, just
certain villages that were very
No, just
big?
a Macedonian affair. And I did a lot of, and I did Macedonian conventions. I did some of those too.
Yes, you would travel and go to different parts of...
What's the OMA? What's the Macedonian?
Okay.
The one from the village. The
Yes.
one from the States they have. I did there, and Greeks too. I did both. Plus I did Italian. I did Chinese weddings, Polish weddings, Ukrainian weddings.
So very international.
All international, but mostly Macedonian and Greek.
Mostly Macedonian.
Yeah.
Okay, now we also have a picture there of a certificate.
Oh, that's when I
Can
graduated.
you tell us
Well, what it was when I graduated,
from the...
the Toronto Board of Education,
Yes, I believe that's from the Member of Parliament.
the Member of Parliament, he just sent me a notice because I graduated. At least, I retired.
Because of your retirement?
Right, it was 93.
Yes.
I don't know if it's dated there. 93, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now, can you give us any other information in terms of maybe what your father told you about?
There was a big contest in 1928 or 29, and they had a battle of the bands, and he won first prize.
Right here in Toronto?
Right in Toronto. I've got the cup at home. And he won first prize.
That's
For
very...
that concert. That was a big event.
That was a big event.
And I've got a picture here where you don't remember this. Years ago, there was bike races at Maple Leaf Gardens. Bicycles for days and days. But he had the band in the middle, playing for the people that listen and to dance to while they're skating around. I've got a picture of it, but I can show you a bunch of them. It's a caricature.
Right. Do you remember what your father told you about his early days when he first came to Canada?
He didn't say much about it. No,
eh?
he really wanted to lean on getting the business and working on his language, to speak English. And,
yes. How did he learn?
He just picked it up.
He just picked
it up and basically because he had to comment in English for dances that he played for. I've got stuff in here. I can show you a pile of this stuff. Pictures of them, write-ups in the paper, everything. I can show it to you.
Did your father explain to you how he met your mom?
Yeah, they met dancing in the very early 20s. Everybody went dancing, and he met her at a dance, and they won a contest or something in Toronto, and that's how they met at a dance. Regular public dance,
Regular.
Yeah, they met. I know that they met by a dance, by dancing together.
Great.
Yeah.
And can you tell us about your own involvement in music, in the community, and anything that you can say that you're really,
Well, there's two events I could mention. Oh, three. I played in the States. In Buffalo with the whole band, went over to the States and played in Buffalo at 2 ballrooms. A friend of mine lived there. Another time I flew my whole band up to Timmins, Ontario, and the agent called me and said, "Would you like to go to Timmins and play with your band? How are you getting here?" He said, "You're going to fly," he said. I said, "Fly? Well, This was in 1956.
Okay.
And the whole band flew up to right in Timmins and played at one-nighter and hotel, and then we went from there on to other. And another place, another thing that thrilled me, I went to a school in Toronto called Malvern Collegiate. That's where I graduated from. And they had a dance years after I had left. And they hired my band, who I used to work there, and I played my own school dance, and I was the band there. It was my old school. And that was quite a thrill to see the teachers come up and say, "Oh, you did all right, eh?"
That's great.
And I played my old school dance, Big Prom.
And how many were in your band?
Well, I was working for an agent, and we'd do every size, right from 5 pieces right up to 14 and 15. All different sizes, 8, 9, 10, right up.
And what instruments did you...
I played trumpet.
You played trumpet?
I played trumpet, yeah.
And what were some of the other instruments
well,
that other people played?
I have a 5-piece band, maybe. I had saxophone, myself, and bass, piano, and drums. That's a small job.
Right.
Because they paid the same price, you see. And then I had, later on, I had 4 saxes and 3 trumpets and rhythm. About 11 and 12 I had, a lot of them, mostly 11 and 12-piece band. But I even played on a truck once with a quintet. I even played for, do you remember Stephen Lewis? Stephen Lewis, you've heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
His son, what's his name, his son, Stephen?
No, Stephen is the son.
It's the son, okay. I worked for him on the back of a truck, advertising his father up in the West End, and we played in the back of a truck in the Italian district, and we played Italian music and different songs, and Stephen signed the contract. That was quite a highlight. Just a small group, but on a truck going around the neighborhood, advertising his father, David. Remember that? Okay, she would know.
Okay, and Frank, what kind of money were the people in the band play?
Well, we were all in the union, as I mentioned.
Okay.
When I first started, it was $6 for a 3-hour job, way back. I'm talking in the 40s now, mid-40s.
So $6
$6 an hour.
An hour?
No, 3 hours, 3
Oh, 3
hours, 3
hours.
hours. But now,
Each?
each.
That was
now,
quite a bit,
that was
right?
in the 40s. Now it's $150 per man.
$150
$150 per man. That's 3-hour job now. But not too many people are working, and now the non-union bands have moved in and working under the price. The union is falling apart, like they're not as successful now. Yeah. Like in the old days, you couldn't go in the Royal York or the King Edward Hotel. You couldn't go, you had to be a union. Now anybody goes.
Now anybody goes.
And they work under the price. It's changed.
Things have changed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. And is there anything that you recall, Frank, about the Macedonian community?
Well, I did a lot of dances for them. I know that.
So where would these dances have been?
Steve Stavro, he used to hire me. You know
Yes.
Steve Stavro, you know that. He hired me, yeah.
And where did you play?
I don't know where I played. One of the hotels, probably, the King
Hotels.
Edward or somewhere. The big wedding. And Chris Paul and some of these other people. And I mentioned Dr. Gelliff at the Palace Pier. You know the Palace Pier? She would know that.
So the Palace Pier was a big banquet?
Was a huge place. What huge place. I played his big wedding.
And Macedonians went there?
Macedonian were there.
Yes, for
Oh,
weddings?
It's the biggest wedding I've ever played.
Really?
Yeah, biggest wedding.
And whose was that, or
Dr. Gelliff.
Geller's wedding?
Tom Gelliff was it? Yeah. He had Avenue Road, remember Avenue Road? You know, she knows it. She's been here a while.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the biggest wedding I ever played. And I mentioned Peter Basil's son, but I wasn't in the band at that time. Yeah, that was at Columbus Hall. But the biggest was the Palace Pier.
And what church, Frank, do you remember?
Well, my father was connected to St. George's.
St. George's.
Yeah. He didn't go to church too often, but he ended up buying the piano for them, or getting the piano for them, for the St. George's Church on Regent Street.
Right.
Yeah, because they were the only churches there, you know.
And yourself, did you belong to any organizations or churches?
Well, I belonged to the bowling league at St. Cyril and Methody.
Oh, yes?
I belonged to the bowling league.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I just went there with a couple of my Macedonian friends. I used to hang around with friend Johnny Novachkov and Mike Peroff. These are buddies of mine. And Danny Nakif was and a few others. I used to hang around these guys a lot, at one time. And they'd all come to the dances where I was playing too. And my dad was playing. They all knew my dad well, And Alec Lazaroff, you remember Alec? He knows them all. Okay. Mike Meloff and Milcho, remember Milcho? These are musicians that non-union band. They weren't union. I was the only one in the union, so I could play in the Royal York, the King Edward, but they couldn't play there.
Oh, they couldn't play with you?
No.
No.
No. But that's okay. They did all right. They did weddings, but they didn't get the price we got because we got the union rate.
Okay.
So that was part of the action at that time.
At that time,
oh,
right.
Yeah.
And can you tell us anything about that maybe we didn't mention about yourself?
Well, I've been married, but not anymore. But that's about. I've got 2 kids. Okay. Yeah.
Are they also very interested in music?
They took music, but they didn't keep it up.
They didn't keep it up.
But they're both doing well. Well, one's married, one's not married. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in terms of gatherings and like about.
Well, I've been to a lot of Macedonian picnics way back. My dad and
did he play at picnics too? Did you play?
Not in the picnic.
Not on the picnics.
No. But we used to go to the picnics with my father and my mother and the family, Macedonian picnics. I remember once down at the Don Valley, they used to have dances there, at least a picnic and dances in the grass. I remember going there with my family, with my father, my mother, and my brothers and sisters. Oh yeah, we used to go to those when we were kids. Oh yeah.
Happy memories?
Happy memories. Well, they were good memories. First learning how to dance, and on the grass.
And then hearing Macedonian music?
Oh, of course. Then I got it from my father, listening to the music, and I bought some records. The Macedonian men had made records. And then I remembered some of them, wrote them down, and wrote them for my band, so I could play them.
So your band could play Macedonian music?
Right, and I had to teach them the rhythm, because they're different rhythms that they don't have popular stuff. And they have different, what they call it, 5/8, 7/8, 12/8.
Yes.
And Gorka the Bubba, and all these songs, and I remember them, and I used to go to New York sometimes and pick up for Greek music. Go to New York and buy them in New York, music.
But the Macedonians you learned mostly from your father?
Mostly, I remember them, and I wrote them down, because I studied some theory, you see.
So you were able to write them down?
I wrote them down. I wrote them for the saxophone and the trumpet and trombone. And I played these big dances at the Royal York for Macedonian and Greeks. I had to be careful what songs I played. You know what I mean? I've got a book at home with special music. Yeah.
Great. So you definitely.
So I did all right.
And you got your love for music from your father?
I got it without my father, and without getting me to take piano lessons first to understand music. Then that got me going.
Right, so the Macedonian groups that you played with and the Greek groups were very different.
Oh, some of the music's different.
Yes.
Certain ones you could play maybe, but a lot of ones you wouldn't touch them.
And the people, were they different?
Oh yeah, well, so of course the Macedonians would go to the Greek dances too, and sometimes the Greeks would go to the Macedonian dance, but some,
Just some.
But I had to be careful what I played.
You had to be careful.
Oh, I did.
Some of the differences, yes.
I've got some other things in here with Macedonian Greeks, and even a sign saying Greek weddings. I used to send them out to flyers,
Right. Frank, what can you say? Like you gave us a lot of information about your musical career. What are you most proud of? Anything that comes to mind in terms of the different?
Well, I remember what my
events you were
father
involved
said.
in?
He said, "Try and play the songs that the people." I'm talking about public dancing now, not Macedonian. He said, "Try and play the songs that they remember them." And he says, make it so that they, like if you play a song they've never heard of, they don't get up and dance. But if you play something that they really know, oh, gotta dance to that.
Okay.
And he always said, and keep them dancing best you can. Keep them dancing and play the songs that you think that they'll remember and know them, and they'll get up and dance. And that makes them successful. That's why we stayed at the Sea Breeze at Sunnyside 14 consecutive years.
That means you played there every week? Or?
Every night up until about 52 or 3. Then we went 3 nights a week. But he started in 42.
Your father
He
played?
did 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. Then he passed away in early 50s. Then I took over and did 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, and 55.
With your own band?
With my own band. Then I went to Bala, Muskoka, and did summers 8 years. I did there in Bala at Dunn's Pavilion, and then 1 year I made a contact with my cousin's wife, Chris Evans. You know my older cousin Chris, of the 3 Evanses? Anyway, his wife's sister married the owner of the Dardanella at Wasaga Beach. And through her, I made a contact and played 1 year at Wasaga Beach before they cut out the dancing. I played at Wasaga Beach. You've heard of that? Wasaga Beach?
Yes.
You know it.
Yes. Were
I
there
played there 1
Macedonian
year.
people there?
Oh, some people were there,
Some.
but not a lot. Some were there. Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of
It was a
Macedonians at the
regular
moment
dance,
there.
regular dance, 6 nights a week.
6 nights a week?
6 nights a week. That would be 1964, to be
Right.
exact. Yeah.
And when you played at the Sea Breeze, was that for
Open air dancing.
Was that
It was
regular,
regular
English
dancing.
music?
Yeah, dance music, yeah.
Dance music.
I think one day I did a Macedonian dance, or a few of them were there, and I made an announcement and said, we're going to play a Macedonian number for some special friends. And we played one song, a short one, and they got up and did a little bit, and that was it.
Okay.
I remember that. That'd be in the mid-50s, early 50s, 53, 54.
Okay.
I can spend an hour about this. I got stuff in here, you wouldn't see it.
Right.
I should show it to you before you close off.
Yes, lots
Just to
of
see
good memories.
Well, they're write-ups of my father, things like that. Yeah.
Great. Well,
I'll show it to you after if you have time. Anyway, that's about
I think,
a lot of the things.
yes, can you just give us a little more information about your kids, your
My
family?
kids?
Yeah.
Well, my son is a lighting director and a staging director. He just came back from Montreal. He did the Motor League show there, General Motors. Was there for 3 weeks there. And he does that. He works for 3 different companies, and he does it very well. My daughter is married and has 2 kids. I've got pictures of them.
Grandchildren, yes.
Two girls, she works part-time for a private people. She's a teacher too. She's been teaching for years for kids and that, but not on a regular private stuff. And she does that a couple of days a week. But she's married now.
Okay.
The kids are. My son is 43. My daughter is 40, and the 2 grandchildren I have are 9 and 6. That's her children.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
lovely.
But they both took music, but they didn't keep it up. And my son plays a little piano, he plays a little guitar, but not. And my daughter, she sang a bit and she plays some piano too.
So they both have the love of music.
They have a love of music, yeah. Thank you very much. It was interesting. I could talk for hours. I've got some pictures I'll show you if you have a few moments to show you.
Great.
Did
Thank you.
little clippings, about my father and his picture and all that. Yeah, it's quite a story. That's why they gave us that 60th anniversary special program.
Yes,
That
quite
was
an
packed.
accomplishment.
Was packed. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, Frank, can you tell us how you met Virginia?
Well, I played a dance at Plater's Hall, which is at Danforth and Broadview, and she was there with her cousins. And I don't know, I looked at her and she looked at me, and I got talking to her and asked her for her phone number. And about a few months later or sometime, I phoned her up and I took her to the motor show. Remember the motor show they used to have at the exhibition? Mm-hmm. I took her there, and that was our first date. Mm-hmm. And then she started to come to the dances, and where I played, and I'd take her. Then I took her home one night when she lived on Yonge Street, mm-hmm. And then we kept going together. And then, of course, I was out of town for a while because I went to Bala for 8 summers there, and she came up with one of her girlfriends, Macedonian girlfriends, and just kept going. And then finally we got married in '66.
Mm-hmm. And was there any opposition from the parents?
No. My mother was alive then, yeah, and my grandmother was alive too, yeah.
And from her side?
Oh yeah, her side, yeah. Well, she has 2 brothers, half brothers. Mm-hmm. And they were there, of course, and I'd been to see. They lived in one lived in Windsor, one lived in Detroit. Mm-hmm. Some of them have passed away, though. Yeah, and that was it. And then we had our first child in 1970. My son, who lives with me, he's not married. And then the daughter came 3 years later in '73, and we lived in Willowdale, or a nice home we had there, and. That's about it, I guess. And we've traveled a bit. We went to Cuba together and places mm-hmm. like that. We went to the East Coast. We went out west, Vancouver, and in Boston, and all that there. Went to St. Louis. She has relatives in St. Louis. We did a bit of traveling, and that's about it. I guess Cuba was a big trip. We were the first people from Toronto to go to Cuba after the revolution.
Okay,
yeah.
When would that have been?
1972.
1972.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we went to Cuba, and that was great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was about 90 of us went. And first time we'd ever gone into Cuba.
Was this like organized by a community?
Yes, it was a fake community. Mm-hmm. Someone set up a club that didn't exist, mm-hmm. and they had to get permission or something. And there was 90 of us went. And we flew Air Canada, mm-hmm. and we went to Cuba in '72 in March. And March break, you've heard of the March break, was March of '72.
Were you and Virginia the only Macedonians on the trip? Or was there...
Yes, we were, but mm-hmm. I knew one musician was there, mm-hmm. a teacher that I knew, happened to be on the plane. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but no Macedonians, no. Mm-hmm. And it was different. It was an interesting trip.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing all your memories with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I hope you edit some of it.